Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs! Duuz-Diz-Din back again with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga. This time, we traveled to the Kalos region in Pokemon Adventures X and Y. But what happened previously? We had the end of the Black 2 and White 2 story arc. Blake and Whitley had teamed up with Black and White to finally take it to Team Plasma. Whitley was finally reunited with N after so long. Whitley and Hugh finally made up for everything that had happened. Hugh and N also had a bit of a reckoning and an understanding, with N determined to return all of the Pokemon who were taken from their owners, including Hugh's sisters Purloin. Cedric, Juniper, Bianca, Chiron, and Benga also joined in the action. Thanks to Keldeo breaking the reveal glass in Colress's possession, the Swords of Justice were able to outmatch the forces of nature and finally take down the Shadow Triad. After Ghetsis is finally backed into a corner by N and several others, he decides he'd rather die than be taken prisoner, causing a massive explosion aboard the plasma frigate. Hugh ends up saving a Snivy who had been taken, while N tries to save Ghetsis, still seeing him as a father who raised and was there for him. But Ghetsis says he is nothing but a monster because he can hear the voices of Pokemon, bashing N across the head so that he may fall to his death, only for him to be saved by Zekrom. Meanwhile, Kyurem frees itself from Reshiram, frees Reshiram from itself, and decides that it has other business. The plasma frigate goes down in flame, while Blake is finally able to take down Colress with a little help from Victini, who had come to join in the battle and was told by Braviary, who had helped it previously, to help Blake out as he needed it the most. But Kyurem wants his own reckoning, freezing Colress solid, making sure that he has no way of escaping, and to be taken into police custody once he's thawed out. The plasma frigate collides with N's former castle, catching the whole thing on fire, though unfortunately it endangers the lives of the Pokemon therein, who have yet to be returned to their owners. And so, our heroes with the various evolutions of the first partner Pokemon of Unova join together to put out the fire. Ghetsis is taken into custody, while White as well as N and Whitley berate him for his action as he tries to say that his dreams were dashed, but White calls it nothing but ambition, meant to trample and hurt others. Whitley makes sure that he knows, while people may one day side with him again, Pokemon will not forget. Kyurem freezes over the giant chasm so that it may be sealed away, never to be disturbed, or disturbed when it's most convenient. A Purloin is returned to Hugh's sister, and Reshiram and Zekrom give a fond farewell to Black and N as they depart. We find that there was a deeper meaning behind Alder's defeat to N, as Alder had recently lost the Pokemon and blamed himself, and Team Plasma took advantage of that. Blake is brought back into the International Police, only for it to have been revealed to be a test, a rather messed up one on top of that, and the Magician is also a member of the International Police. White offers Whitley a career at Pokestar Studios, but she decides she'd rather help N return the Pokemon to their rightful owners. Black decides to enroll in the trainer school so that he can learn everything that he missed in the past 2 years, which good on him for taking it all in stride. Chiron has become a gym leader officially. Blake, Whitley, Hugh, Leo, and the rest of their class graduate, which everyone attends. And Blake and Whitley part, rather solemnly, as Blake makes it known that they may never truly not see each other again. Well, Blake will see Whitley, but she won't realize that it's him, and goes about returning the Pokemon that were liberated to their trainers. While Whitley does attempt to return her Fungus, the trainer decides to not take it back, ultimately not feeling that he was the right person for it, which Fungus is all too happy for, because that means that he and Whitley can stay together. And as Blake and Whitley depart with Anthea and Concordia, we see Blake disguised as Colress traveling with the Magician to a new mission in Alola. But that's for another time. With all that on the table, let us explore the Kalos region. The region that first piqued my interest in heading back into Pokemon before I picked up Sun and Moon. Let's see if it can live up to my expectation in a game that really started to capture my heart yet again. So join me as I find out, won't you? I'm gonna end up recording a lot more than I initially planned just because I'm a little too excited for this. So, we'll see. It all depends. We might end up doing more than one day on the sly. Now let's check it out. It's Pokemon Adventures X and Y, Volume 1, or if you're going from beginning to end, it's Volume 56. And we could see a myriad of Pokemon and trainers on this cover. We got X and Y on I don't know what they're on top of. We have Trevor, Tierno, and what was her name? Shauna. There we go. I had to look their names back up, and I still ended up getting it wrong. It's interesting there's a Charmander there. Is that a Fetchling? Yeah. Chespin, Skitty, Rhyhorn, Corphish, and I know those two figures up on the roof, but I can't remember. You run into them in Sun and Moon, and that's why you end up with the whole Zygarde mission thing. They probably have more of an impact on Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but I can't quite remember. And then Froakie, yeah. Kind of weird that these are the only Pokemon on the cover. What was the fire type of the region? I actually don't remember. Oh well, figure it out later. Ooh, this is a different readout. Oh yeah, the Mega Evolution for Kangaskhan. That's so weird. It's just like the baby gets all pumped up and jumps out of the pouch. Okay, he's X, right? Yeah, there's so many chapters. I might end up regretting doing half a volume. Wouldn't be the first time though. An evolution that transcends evolution. That is what we call a Mega Evolution. Okay, we pick up at a tournament. Ooh, and you see one of my favorite Pokemon, Noivern. Oh man, I've gotten a Noivern in, I think Sun and Moon, but definitely Sword and Shield. Love my Noivern. Get it every time. Fortunately, it's been defeated by a Kangaskhan, wielded by a very young X. It's Chertaro. He announces, oh yeah, you're supposed to be like childhood friends with everyone here. They do that more and more with like a friendly group of childhood friends in the Pokemon series. Chertaro announces, what an amazing accomplishment. The new champion of the Junior Trainer Tournament is X. The Kalos Region Junior Trainers received the ultimate test in the tournament, and X's performance was exceptional. He has trounced the other trainers from the very first match. What are your thoughts about X? An unknown figure says he's incredible, astonishing, fantastic. I can't wait to see what kind of trainer he grows up to be. Perhaps he's destined to become a gym leader. No, even greater than that. This boy has the potential to join the Elite Four. And then we see first as X waves to his friends Y, Tierno, Trevor, and Shauna. Suddenly reporters come crowding in, just bowling over X's other friends to get an interview. We have narration saying, oh, X says, even as a child, my friend... Oh no, I guess it's Y saying it. Even as a child, my friend impressed everybody with his talent as a Pokemon trainer. And then he became an overnight celebrity. Everyone said, that kid is going places. That boy has a bright future ahead of him. That child will grow up to leave his mark on the world. For a while, he was bathed in the limelight. Oh no, it's Trevor saying that. But now, for the last few years, he locked himself in his room and won't come out. Oh, next to him is, what is that, Floette? Oh, Flabebe. Okay. Oh, Floette is its evolved form, right? Yeah. Adventure number 1. An excuse to come out and play. Oh, I love the way they're using that. And you see X in a room with just a bed and some random things on the floor. He just sits in the middle. I wonder what happened. We pick up in Vanilleville Town. Oh, where we see someone flying overhead in a wingsuit with is it a Fetchling? Yeah, Fetchling. Oh, she flies over Trevor's head and I guess lands outside of X's place. Is it Y? Yeah. She takes off her helmet, revealing herself to be Y, who breathes in and then shouts at X's window, "Good morning, X!" Trevor cringes. Trevor says, "You're a little loud." Y smiles, saying, "Morning, Trevor." Trevor says, So what's today's strategy? I don't want to be a part of any rough stuff." Enter Shauna and Tierno. Shauna saying, she's just going to make a racket like she always does. Shauna's a bit dismissive, saying, you never give up, do you? What do you think, Tierney? Tierno nervously doesn't respond as Y shouts down, well, Shauna. And Shauna interrupts, saying, I'm only calling it like I see it. Now Tierno tells Shauna, now, no. But Y goes back over to the window, saying, X, guess what I brought for you today? This, look, a Pokepuff. The fetchling starts eating it. As Y explains, they're cakes for your Pokemon. They're really popular these days. Pokemon love them. Hey, wouldn't you like to feed one of these to your Pokemon? You know you want to. Come on, give it a try. But X just sits there, not responding. Y looks away, saying nothing. He reaches into her bag or someplace, saying, okay, time for plan B. He pulls out a flyer, saying, super training. She pokes the flyer into his window, saying, take a look at this flyer. It's a new way to train your Pokemon. You fight against balloon bots. Doesn't that sound like fun? Y waits anxiously. X scribbles something on the poster and slips it back out, much to Y's surprise. But the poster now reads, no thanks. Y gets angry and starts stomping on X around. Well, no, she's not hitting the window. She's stomping around it, not to break the glass, shouting, will you cut it out already? Come out here right now, X. But Tierno shouts up, it's no use. Oh no, Trevor shouts up, it's no use. Tierno says, I agree. While Shauna just dismisses it, saying, what did I tell you? We tried everything. Nothing works. We gave up trying to get Exy to exit his room a long time ago. But Tierno then looks at her with a smile, saying, how come we keep coming back here? Ooh, got her there. Shauna says, well, the five of us have been friends since forever. Then one day, Exy locked himself up in his room. We stopped by his house every day, but one by one we gave up. Tina says, it's just that. We were all so busy with our own lives. Trevor's studying to be a Pokemon researcher. I'm training to be a dancer. And your dream is to become a fruit groomer. Okay, so was that in the games too? They all had different career paths? Y has really big dreams. He wants to become a sky trainer, but she still finds time every day to come and visit X. Shauna then says, you have big dreams too, Tierney. Look. And we see a Kangaskhan who seems to be hungry. Tierno says, oh, sorry, I forgot to feed you. Since Exy locked himself in his room, you've been taking care of his Pokemon. You're a good friend, says Shauna. Kangaskhan then looks to X's room. As Tina says to it, you'd rather be with X, wouldn't you? Isn't that right, Kanga? He then notices Kangaskhan pat its pouch. What happened? It's weird to see it without it. Oh, something happened? Tierno goes for the pat, saying it's true. The one who misses X the most is little Kanga. I guess it's Trevor's narration saying the junior trainer tournament made X famous. And his Pokemon who gathered the most attention wasn't Kanga. It was little Kanga. Here Chertaro announces, amazing! Blocked and blocked again! It blocked all of Noivern's attacks, as we see Noivern and Kangaskhan going at it. But the figure next to Chertaro thinks, oh, look at that. Or is he whispering? I think Chertaro says, look at what? The figure says, the little one is inside Kanga's pouch. Is assisting in the battle. Impossible. The Kangaskhan keeps his little one hidden in its pouch to protect it. Never seen anything like this before. A hit and run tactic. The little one pops out to attack and then slips back into the safety of the pouch. The opponent has no idea what hit it. And the young boy trained in a fight like this? Tierno's narration says small but incredibly powerful. Little Kanga was just like X. And we see the little Kanga high-fiving X. Tierno says in the present, they were so alike, the perfect duo. Shauna says they're still alike, Trevor. After all, little Kanga shut itself inside Kanga's pouch, just like X has shut himself into his room. Okay. I thought something had happened to it. Trevor says, little Kangaskhan usually leave their pouches after 3 years or so. Under normal circumstances, little Kanga should have grown into a full-size Kanga by now. Shauna looks at the pouch saying, like trainer like Pokemon, huh? Exy is the source of this problem. If he would just come out of his room, it would fix everything. Meanwhile, cut to Y still yelling at the window saying, X, say something! She's exhausted now. But suddenly, she hears X say anything. Well, she didn't say anything. It would have been a bit of a joke if she did. But Y then slumps to the ground and questions, hey, don't you get lonely in there all by yourself? X tells her, not at all. It's peaceful. No one's staring at me. No one's talking about me. The media flatters me 1 minute. and attack me the next. I don't have to worry about anything here. Y takes a moment and then says, it wasn't all like that. Remember your days as an active trainer? You were dazzling. Trevor, Shauna, Tierno, and I were all so proud of you. Who cares about what others say about you? Your skill as a Pokemon trainer is indisputable. Why don't you start fighting Pokemon battles again? You're the champion of the junior trainer tournament. Do justice to the title. Don't lay your Pokemon down. And after a while, X says, I've had enough Pokemon training. Oh. Suddenly, after a moment, Y notices the sound of a camera flash. She turns and spots, what were their names? Viola and Alexa, the sisters, and a couple of photo bugs on top of that. In fact, Alexa traveled with Ash in the anime for a while, if I remember correctly. But seeing them, Y gets angry, leaping towards them with her wingsuit, much to their surprise. As she lands, Alexa says, did we do something wrong? Just so you know, we obtained permission to interview you. My name is Alexa. I'm a reporter. And this is my sister Viola. She's a photographer. You're an incredible pilot, just as they say. Pleased to meet you, Sky Trainer Trainee Giovanni Gabene? Giovanni Gabene? Huh. Dude, does that mean that X also has a real name? Is he like Xanatos or something? The X and all that? I see that your friends call you Y. Shauna chimes in saying, I call her Y. Alexis then says, I'm sure you'll make a fine debut as a Sky Trainer by the time that fletching of yours evolves into a Fletchinder. But didn't you used to be a Rhyhorn racer? What made you decide to change your profession from land to sky? I'm sure there's a great story behind it, and it will make a wonderful feature article. It would be great to get a photograph of you in your everyday clothes. Will you take off your flight suit for us, please? I says, not now. Besides, it would take me an hour to put it back on. Oh, geez, that long. I don't feel like changing at the moment. You may have asked the Sky Trainer Training School for permission to interview me, but I wasn't told a thing about it. Alexa. I keep saying Alexis. Alexa says, oh, I'm getting the feeling you don't like us. Y says, I don't. I hate paparazzi from newspapers, magazines, TV, radio, and all the rest. Alexa asks, why? Y says, because it's scavengers like you who ruin my friend's life. Shauna sighs. Oh, Trevor says, why? Tierno says, I hope she doesn't get into a fight with them. Suddenly, what's that device on Trevor's neck? I don't know what that item is. But Trevor picks it up saying, a hologram message from the professor. A Professor Sycamore? Yeah. Trevor answers it and a hologram of Professor Sycamore comes up saying, hello, Trevor. That package I sent to you should be delivered to your place today. Could you check if it's arrived safely for me? Trevor says, today? And he runs through, the wind is really picking up in the area. He runs to his house and sees the delivery man saying, it's here. As he goes through the box, he sees, the starter Pokemon, and are those Pokedexes? Oh, yeah, Fennekin, Hespin, Fennekin, and Froakie. Right, there we go. Trevor grabs all of them saying, hooray, they're finally here. And then he notices something, and his narration says, it's weird to feel happy and sad all at the same time. The professor sent me 3 Pokemon who need trainers. X has shut himself up in his room for such a long time. But maybe with the responsibility of raising and caring for these Pokemon, I turned back into the person he used to be. I've been waiting for this package to arrive ever since the professor agreed to tell me. But we see Trevor look to the sky, and suddenly he looks nervous. What the hell? What the hell? You see Xerneas and Yveltal. That's how you say the names, right? Yveltal, apparently. Xerneas and Yveltal. Shauna says, what's that? Over by Trevor's house. Everyone turns to see the 2 legendary Pokemon who begin to clash. A massive explosion goes off in the center of the town as the people cry, the hill, it's been blown away. Shauna says, we have to run, now. Tierno calls out to Y. Y takes off, racing back up to X's window, saying, X, come out, I'm serious. We have to get out of here. They're going to destroy the neighborhood. It's not safe in your room anymore. And as the 2 Pokemons clash, continue to cause more and more destruction. The people and Pokemon scrambling. Trevor's narration continues. I was more than annoyed with X for staying in his room under the circumstances, but I was unable to move myself. Now that I think about it, That's when it all started. On his wrist, something was shining that was about to change everything. Isn't that a Mega Evolution Stone, though? Why would it bring them here? Current location, Veneville Town. Blooming buds covered in morning dew exude hope for the future in this small town. Well, that's a heck of a way to start. I mean, it's been a while since we started with the legendary sighting. Okay, adventure number 2. Exactly what they wanted. I do love it. Okay, as Yveltal and Xerneas continue to battle, the people continue to run, scrambling away. They shout, "What is that? Is it a Pokemon? Whatever it is, we better make a run for it." But as the rumbling continues to shake X's room, he hears Y shout, "X, please come out, X!" X says, "Wow, Y, you're really persistent today." He goes to his window saying, "Stop destroying my house." And as he peeks out, he sees the 2 massive Pokemon battling. But the thing that catches his eye the most is, I'm still not remembering their name, Alexa and Viola. He grows angry, but his attention is taken by Y slamming on his window. She tells him, "Did you see that? You saw it, didn't you? Don't you see what's going on outside?" X says, "I saw." Y tells him, "Then come out." X says, "No." Y questions, "Why not?" X says, "The paparazzi are out there. Don't trust them." Alexa watching the scene while Viola takes pictures. Alexa says, "Did you take a photo of them, Viola?" Viola says, "Uh-huh. Hey, Alexa, are those Pokemon?" Alexa says, "I don't know, but I once did a story about a 3,000-year-old legend which says that every 1,000 years 2 legendary Pokemon appear in the Kalos region. Maybe these 2 are those legendary Pokemon. Their names are Xerneas and Yveltal." As the Pokemon continue to clash, Tierno scrambles to get away from the action. Trevor. I don't know why I keep calling him Tierno. Trevor scrambles away from the action, saying, "Whoa, no." Y spots this, calling out to Trevor. He then gives a whistle, summoning the Rhyhorn. Rhyhorn scrambles her way, and she grabs onto its back. She shouts, "Tierno, Shauna, get on." And they both do just that, running in the opposite direction of the fleeing townspeople. Yveltal then unleashes a massive blast that sends Trevor flying. Shauna calls out, "Trevor!" And as Rhyhorn jumps, Tierno manages to grab Trevor, but Trevor ends up dropping one of the Pokeballs and Pokedexes. Oh man. Blast from Yveltal rips up the dance school, much to Tierno's shock, and sends, I guess, Shauna's Frou flying, much to her shock. Y says, "Rhyhorn, keep running until you get to somewhere safe." Trevor questions, "What about you?" Y says, "I'm going back. I can't leave X there by himself." And she flies off as her friends shout, "Why?" "Oh, wait, already?" Jeez. This has more in common with the beginning of the manga, just because we have the evil team already showing up. It's Team Flare headed by Jurassic. The Jurassic watches, he says, "This is the power of the Pokemon we've been searching for. But at the rate we're going, we can't capture them. We can't even control them." Pelosia says, "The plan was to capture one of the 2. Okay, I'm trying to figure out all their names. Brioni says, "Who'd have thought that both of them would show up at once?" Jurassic says, "Team Flare's ultimate weapon. We have to obtain the power of the legendary Pokemon to move it, but it seems like we will have to look for another opportunity." Celosia says, "How's Unit B doing with our Plan B?" Flare Grunt says, "Well, at the moment, they're heading for the house of the person who owns it." Brioni says, "They better not damage it. We need to get a hold of the Mega Ring. But if we so much as scratch the keystone, we won't be able to draw it as power." The Flare Grunt at the door says, "It's no good. The house is locked up tight." Oh god, there's so many of them. Mabel says, "If we fail, it's Unit A's fault for not completing their mission." Well, Aliana laughs. "Don't be such a hothead," patting Mabel on the back. Aliana goes over to her Pyroar, saying, "We'll break down the door and get it before those legendary Pokemon destroy the house. I'm counting on you, Pyroar." Pyroar unleashes a blast of fire against the house, causing the house to go up in flames that Y sees from the air. She shouts, "Y's house! No! X!" As she sees X cornered by Team Flare. I also see a Houndoom. As the members of Team Flare go, "Huh?" X shouts, "Why?" Y says, "What's going on? Who are these people?" Mabel says, "What's this?" Aliana laughs, saying, "Maybe she's his girlfriend, or just a friend. A friend that's a girl." Mabel shouts, "Whoever she is, she's in our way. Houndoom?" And Houndoom goes in, biting into Y's wrist, chucking her into a wall. X shouts for Y, and as Y struggles on the ground, Houndoom gets ready to fire off a blast, but it's suddenly hit in the face by Kangaskhan, punched right into the ground. X shouts for Kanga, but Mabel says, "Grr, it's one obstacle after another." While Aliana says, "Help us, Pyroar." Pyroar unleashes a blast, but Kangaskhan shields X and Y from it. Ooh. Between both Houndoom and Pyroar unleashing their fire, Kangaskhan is fading fast. X is still at a loss, unable to do anything but barely call out Kanga's name, reaching out for it, holding its snout. But Mabel sees the Mega Ring, saying, "Mega Ring confirmed." Aliana says, "Bring him to us, Pyroar." Pyroar grabs X by his collar, dragging him over to the Team Flare members as Y calls out to X. The baby Kangaskhan pokes his head out of Kangaskhan's pouch. Seeing both X and his mother in trouble, little Kangaskhan grows angry, and thanks to the power of the Mega Evolution Stone, it Mega Evolves into Mega Kangaskhan, which has always been so weird that that's how it works. You know, the Mega form is just the baby coming out ready to kick your butt. Wait, so, yeah, because don't you have to have, like, the specific Mega Stones to have your specific Pokemon evolve? Or does this Mega Stone maybe evolve any Pokemon that is capable of Mega Evolution? Well, regardless, the Mega Evolved baby Kangaskhan pops out of its mother's pouch, much to the shock of everyone present, as the Mega Evolved baby rushes in, beating down Houndoom and Pyroar. It takes it's a female Pyroar's mane, and the Houndoom by its tail swings them around and then tosses them in the air. Mabel saying, "It can do it? He can do it?" X is still aghast, seeing the Mega Evolved baby. As Mabel said, "No one told us. He already knows how to do it. Shoot, we weren't briefed about this. We don't have a contingency plan. What should we do?" But Aliana just pats her on the back, laughing. "What can we do? We don't have any Pokemon left, so we have to fall back." Mabel says, "Right. Unit B, retreat." Cut back to Xerosic, who radios in. "This is Unit A. Xerneas and Yveltal were fighting until a moment ago, but now they're starting to put some distance between each other." The voice on the other end says, "They must have realized that as long as they're evenly matched, they'll only get mired down in a never-ending battle." Jurassic says, "So what do we do now?" The voice says, "We still need a power source for our ultimate weapon. We'll capture them sooner or later." Cut to the aftermath of the two legendaries' battle, and the town is in ruins as we see Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor just sitting amongst the rubble. Y comes up dragging X behind her, calling out to the others, "Are you all right?" Tierno questions, "Why?" Y goes over to Shauna, and Shauna tearfully says, "My frou-frou is gone. I got blown away by the blast." Trevor says, "I lost one of the 3 Pokemon in one of the Pokedexes, and the message function of the Holocaster is malfunctioning too." Tierno says, "We've all lost something." Y questions, "You too, Tierno?" As she sees Tierno looking over the dance hall. Tierno looks to the others, saying, "What do we do now?" Shauna then shouts, "I'm going to find it. I'm going to find my frou-frou." While Trevor tells him, "I have no way of contacting Professor Sycamore. I'll have to go see him in person to tell him what's happened. Luckily, I managed to send him a message about those 2 huge Pokemon just before the Holocaster malfunctioned. He might know something about them." Y says, "That was quick thinking. I wanted to ask him about those people in the red suits who attacked X too." I guess it's Trevor who says, "I'll go with you." Tierno says, "Let's all go together, Shauna." Shauna wipes away her tears, saying, "Okay, I'll come along. After all, we've been together since we were kids." Y says, "Great." She then comes over to the still sulking X, saying, "I don't need to ask you to join us, X. You understand why you have to come with us, don't you? Those people are after that ring around your arm. They destroyed your house to get to you. Oh, what about X's, parents, were they not in the house? Y tells him, you've got no place to hide. You're caught up in the middle of this. X doesn't respond, only for Y to strip him down, saying, will you change out of your pajamas, please? And because of this, X sneezes, while Y shows off some other clothes, saying, come on, get dressed. But as everyone else laughs, and the Kangaskhan smiles, the baby, having poked its head out, zips back into its pouch. Trevor's narration continues. All of a sudden, our regular everyday lives were transformed. But some things never change, our friends and our Pokémon, and so we left our hometown behind and set out on our journey together. And we see, because of the way X is, he's up on the Rhyhorn being ridden around, well, being carried around basically. I think this is a much more dynamic opening for this than probably in the games, because if you tell me that the game opens with Xerneas and Yveltal destroying their hometown, I won't believe you. The hometown is sacred. Nothing almost ever happens there. Current location, Vanilleville Town. Well, the remains of it anyway. Hopefully by the time they get back, it'll be repaired. Alright, adventure number 3. Interesting developments. We pick up on Route 1, the Vanilleville Town path, Vanilleville Pathway. Trevor tells the group, there's our next stop, Aquacord Town. Tirna says, it's getting dark. Where are we going to stay for the night, Trevs? Shauna says, I don't want us to camp outside. Well, Y says, don't worry, I always have a plan. Don't I always have a plan? Okay, now I understand what's on the back of Rhyhorn. Basically, because X is such a shut-in, he's made himself a makeshift little setup, so he doesn't have to technically be outside while being outside. Suddenly, as they come to the archway of the town, an old lady with a lamp comes up. She also has what is that? A spritzy? She says, excuse me, are you Giovanni Gabane and company? Y says, that's right. Are you from the inn? The innkeeper says, yes, I was starting to worry since it's after sunset already. This way, please sign the guest book. 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought you said you were a party of 5. Tierno and Trevor look to the setup on the back of Rhyhorn nervously. The woman says, eh? And she goes over to peek under the blanket. Y comes out saying, wait a minute. Oh, wait. Only for the woman to see X all huddled up under the blanket. Y comes over as the innkeeper says, why is that boy hiding under a sheet? Y says, oh, sorry about that. He won't be any trouble. He's just mopey. I'll fill in the guest book for him. Both Tierno and Trevor bow as Trevor says, you know how it is. The innkeeper walks away saying, no, I don't, but it's all right. Mopey, eh? And as she goes back inside, Y says, hey, X, come out. You have to come out from under there right now. X says, no. Y tells him, I got you out of your room, but now that you've made this little fort on my Rhyhorn, and you're back in your pajamas again, move it. We need to get up to our rooms. X says, no. Y says, I'll drag you up there myself. Well, the other says, calm down, Y. Well, the innkeeper says, excuse me, you still need to sign the guest book. Up in their rooms, Shauna is laying on the bed saying, Exy hasn't changed at all. And neither has Y. Trevor says, but Shauna, can you blame her? Just when she thought she'd pulled X out of his shell, he's hidden away again. I'm as frustrated as she is. Aren't you, Tierna? Tierna says, but you can't expect him to change that quickly. X didn't choose to come outside because he was ready. And look, over there. He motions to the window, and as everyone peeks out, we see X in his little fort being tended to by the Kangaskhan. X asks his Kangaskhan, you're mad at me too, aren't you, Kanga? And little Kanga, it's no surprise. I left you with Tierna all these years while I hid from everything. And then yesterday, you too. I couldn't believe my eyes. Little Kanga jumped out of your pocket and transformed. All of a sudden you turned into such a powerful Pokemon, and then back into your original state after the battle. You surprised me. I have no idea what happened. Did you know you could change like that, little Kanga? He doesn't get a response. For the first time, X smiles, saying, I guess you're still giving me the cold shoulder. X then looks to the Megastone that he's taped up, saying, maybe you transformed because of this ring. The stone was shining really bright when it happened. The little Kangaskhan pokes his head out. As X says, The ring must have some kind of special power that made little Kanga transform. If this gets out, the paparazzi will be crawling all over us again, just like before. Suddenly, X is approached by Tierno saying, "So that's why you're hiding under the blanket, huh? You want to hide that ring?" Explains why you covered up the stone with duct tape, too. Tierno is holding the remaining Pokeballs and Pokedex. He tells him, "It's not so much that you're worried about the media making a spectacle out of you, though, is it? It's that you don't want little Kanga to go through what you went through. Am I right, X?" Tierno then brings out Chespin and Froakie, and as X slowly covers himself in the blanket, he questions, "Where are those two?" Tierno explains, "Chespin and Froakie. They were entrusted to Trez by a Pokemon researcher from Lumio City. There was a third Pokemon called Fennekin, but it got separated from us in the midst of all that craziness yesterday. But I'm trying to find it, and I will." Okay. It's weird that they even bothered to have them separated, but that seems to always happen. X says, "And?" Tierno says, "I talked it over with Trez and Shauna. We think you and Y should take care of these two. After all, you two are the best Pokemon trainers out of the 5 of us." X says, "I guess that's true. Thank you. This was your plan from the start, wasn't it, Tierno? To give me new Pokemon to take my mind off things?" Tierno says, "You see right through me. X, I think you're at a crossroads. Why don't you make up with little Kanga? Then turn over a new leaf as a Pokemon trainer. Little Kanga is lonely. I think you should start by finding a new friend for it. You get first pick. Choose the one you like and then..." But suddenly X comes out of the blanket, well, partially, grabbing Tierno by the shirt, telling him, "Don't tell me how to live my life, Tierno. It's my decision to make." But Tierno unflinchingly tells him, "I'm not trying to pick a fight with you, but I have a right to give you advice. After all, I'm the one who's been taking care of Kanga and little Kanga all this time. I never stopped believing in you, that someday you'd come out of your room. Kanga and little Kanga and I are on your side." X lets Tierno go and hides back under the blanket. Meanwhile, Y has accessed the phone and hangs it up, saying, "It's no good. I can't get in touch with her." The innkeeper questions, "With who?" Y says, "Mom, my mother. I'm worried she was returning to town after what happened there." The innkeeper says, "After what happened?" The innkeeper then turns on the TV, where we see Malva. Malva reports, as you've probably heard, since the explosion outside of Vanderville town, several people are still missing." The innkeeper questions, "You're from Vanderville town?" Y says, "Yes, the 5th member of our group of friends. His name is Ek. He locked himself in his room for the last few years until yesterday. His parents had to travel to a different region for work, so my mother's been looking after him." The innkeeper says, "Is that so? He must be very close to your mother then." Y says, "He is." Fletchy, should I tell X that I can't get a hold of my mom? I don't know if I should. It'll take the news even harder than me." The innkeeper says, "Oh, why is that?" Y says, "Well, I don't get along with all that well with my mother." The innkeeper says, "Sounds like you have a complicated relationship." Y says, "Yeah. Have you heard of Rhyhorn Racer Grace?" The innkeeper says, "Of course. A legendary Rhyhorn racer with an unprecedented 25 race winning streak." Y says, "Well, that's my mom." We have a flashback where Grace is posing as a reporter says, "Grace has broken her own record, 25 wins in a row." Reporters come up to her while she's holding her child Y, little baby Y, as the reporters say, "Congratulations, that was amazing." Grace tells them, "I gave it all I've got today because my daughter was watching from the stand. I'm teaching her how to Rhyhorn race, and she's catching on quickly." The reporter says, "Oh, should we anticipate a future champion?" Grace says, "Yes, I'm going to raise her to be the next great racer." Y explains, "Everyone just assumed I'd grow up to race Rhyhorn. Everybody around me, including my mother, never doubted that was my destiny. I can stand all that pressure." The innkeeper says, "I see." Y says, "So, to rebel, I decided to become a sky trainer, the exact opposite of a Rhyhorn racer who races on land." The innkeeper says, "I see." This innkeeper is so patient. I keep wanting to call her Serena. Y says, "I'm worried about her, though. What if she got caught in the blast?" Next, Tierno enters back in from outside, going up somberly up the stairs. The innkeeper says, "Your friend has gone up to his room. The only one of your group that's still outside is the boy under the sheet." Y says, "Okay, Fletchy, I'd rather not, but I think we'd better go tell X about Mom. Well, the innkeeper grabs her by the wrist, saying, you should wait. Y says, but, this is getting ominous. The innkeeper says, you're young, so this might be hard for you to understand, but both you and that boy have gone through a lot already. He doesn't need any additional worries at the moment, especially over things he can't do anything about. Y says, really? Really? The woman's innkeeper says, really? Y says, I guess you have a point, but I still think he ought to know. But the innkeeper grabs her tighter, saying, don't go. Y then goes, huh? Is there some reason you don't want me to speak to X? The innkeeper says, don't be silly. Of course there's a reason. Oh, geez. As suddenly I just found out what it is. Spritzy knocks Y and her fletchling into the wall. The innkeeper then gets on a communicator saying, I've managed to separate the 5 of them. The target is alone outside. 3 are upstairs in their rooms, and I'm keeping the last one occupied down here in the lobby. A voice on the other line says, perfect. Y commands her fletchling to go up against the Spritzy, but as Y goes for the door, she says it's locked. Meanwhile, back in the other's room, Shauna gets out of bed saying, what's all the racket about? Tierney? Trevor? As Tierno is fiddling with the door, he says, it seems that both the door and the windows are locked. Trevor says, we can't open them. As Fletchling battles with the Spritzy, it sees Y struggling with the windows. So Fletchling makes a impulsive decision and just bashes out the windows. Gotta say, that's pretty impressive. The innkeeper says, what? Well, Y heads out the window saying, thanks, Fletchy. She beats out the rest of it, jumping through, calling out for X, only for Y to see the other members of Team Flare having beaten down Kangaskhan. Jeebus. Y says, the red suits. Mabel says, hey, she said she'd keep her busy. While Aliana laughs, saying, don't be such a whiner. Y blocks off their path to X, saying, I won't let you hurt X. Mabel says, what an annoying little brat. While Aliana laughs, saying, don't worry, today we're only after this. As the Diggersby holds up the baby Kangaskhan. Y says, little Kanga, they took Kanga's baby away so it can't fight back. Y then thinks to herself, what should I do? Kanga can't fight on her own. Fletchy is fighting inside the inn. My Royhorn is a racing Rhyhorn. Doesn't know how to fight. Oh, really? Y then looks to the Froakie and Chessfin, saying, these 2 Pokemon, if they could battle with me. She then calls out, please, I know we've only just met, but I need you to help me fight those bad guys. Help me defeat them. The Froakie and the Chessfin just look at her blankly. Aliana laughs. That's funny. Well, Mabel says, I'll get rid of you today for good. And she commands her Houndoom to fire off a fire blast. But then it's blocked by something. Y says, huh? Mabel says, what the? Y looks to the Froakie saying, a giant bubble? Did you just protect me? Nice. So, wait, does that mean that the Froakie is now wise? It would make sense, given the final evolution of Chespin, that would go to X. I wonder who gets the friggin' fox, though. But X comes out from under the blanket, calling out to Y. He tells her, get out of the way. That's my Pokemon. Give back little Kanga right now, he says, about to remove the tape from the Megastone. Oh, okay. He's actually ready to go in. Current location, Route 1, Vaniville Pathway. A small and quiet country lane that connects Vaniville to Aquacord Town. A town that naturally sprang up as people flocked to this pristine riverside. Interesting. Okay. I'm interested to actually see if he jumps into action. The most passive protagonist we've had so far. Alright. New chapter, adventure number 4. They have a flair for a little Kanga napping. I've missed these terrible puns. X is ready to confront Team Flare, saying, that is my Pokemon. Y cries out for X, while X is scratching the tape off of the Mega Stone, saying, hand it over. Give me my little Kanga. Oh, he's having trouble with it. I'm like, because you got, oh man, I'm never going to remember their names fully. Mabel and Aliana, who's watching like, you need a little help there, bud? While X says, do it. But Y, tired of it, says, come on, we don't have all day. She grabs X's wrist and grabs the bandages, tearing it off, saying, I'll peel it off then, revealing the Mega Stone. Aliana says, the Mega Ring, while Mabel says, he's going to Mega Evolve his Pokemon. We got Trevor, Tyranno, and Shauna. I don't know why I get stuck on her name. Listening in, as well, Trevor specifically, as he questions mentally, Mega Ring, Mega Evolve. X tries to do it manually and it glows. Oh, hey, Kangaskhan's pouch glows, but the little Kanga doesn't do anything. Still in the grasp of Diggersby. You do have Mabel just shying away, but Aliana's just like, hey, nothing's happening. Mabel questions, huh? X is shocked. Y says nothing. Well, Trevor says, I'm not mad. Wait, Trevor, do you get mad when you see Mega Evolution? Like, wait, what? Mabel says, only freaked out because you were scared, Aliana. Well, Aliana says, sure, don't try to hide it, Mabel. Mabel says, how many times do I have to tell you to call me Mabel? Aliana says, anyhow, now we know that the Mega Evolution process is unreliable. In his hands, at least. Ooh, and Diggersby slams the little Kanga into the ground, knocking it out. X crying out, little Kanga. X is still fiddling around with the Mega Evolution Stone. Aliana saying, did you think you were hiding that ring by covering it with duct tape? Mabel says, that's so cute, but stupid. We follow the energy given off by that ring straight to you. While Aliana says, shut up, Mabels. You're talking too much. The boss won't like it. Mabel shudders, and they both gesture to each other, mouths zipped. While Y goes over to X saying, X, pull yourself together, as X is sulking to the ground. Y says, why are you so upset over one little failure? If your first attack doesn't succeed, try again. Come up with another way to fight them. We need your help. She gestures to Chespin and Froakie, but then she panics saying, but how are we supposed to fight them? I don't even know what kind of Pokemon you are. But Trevor calls from the window. Why? She noticed me. Look down. He gestures to the Pokédexes at her feet. Oh, is that how the Pokédexes here look? That's kind of wild. Yeah. Huh. The Kalos Pokédex looks so weird. Friggin' holographic display. I guess I did get a little too used to the Rotom phone, honestly speaking. Because the Rotom Dex and the Rotom phone and all that basically is the Pokédex now. And with it like floating above you and all that good stuff. I kind of do miss the more analog Pokédex. But I guess this is the point where we start kind of moving away from that. Y says, I think Trevor called this thing a Pokédex. As she opens it up, she sees the entries on Froakie and Chespin. Oh, we're not getting the full thing? Huh, so many different things are happening here. Y says, wow, their data has appeared. This is like an encyclopedia for Pokemon. Mabel then says, kidnap the baby Kangaskhan since it's a Pokemon that we know can Mega Evolve. Looks like we've completed our mission. Aliana laughs saying, then let's go back. Mabel then says, wait, those kids ticked me off this time. And the time before. I want revenge. Aliana says, you're just cranky and spiteful, Mabel. But yes, let's teach them a lesson they'll never forget, so they'll never even think about fighting us again. Okay, who owns what? Okay, Aliana says, Diggersby, Mudshot. While Mabel says, Houndoom, Flamethrower. Ooh, Houndoom uses Flamethrower on Chespin, while Diggersby uses Mudshot on Froakie. So Froakie just kind of takes it. Weird. Y says, oh no, Chespin is a grass type and Froakie is a water type. Froakie, I want you to fight Houndoom, and Chespin, you fight... Huh? What? She then notices X actually moving out. With Chespin? Yeah. She cries out, X! He's fighting them. And Froakie is fighting Houndoom. So X and Chespin go at Diggersby. As Diggersby brings his ear down, Chespin manages to dodge. Y says Diggersby's punch is so powerful, even though it's using its ears, and it's still holding on to little Kanga. That sure is. As Diggersby's ear is headed straight for Chespin, Turnio says, look out! So X tells Chespin, turn around. Oh, Chespin's shell. I guess it's super durable? Because when Diggersby makes contact, it ends up hurting itself with its ears swelling up. It causes it to toss away the little Kangaskhan. X manages to catch the little Kanga. Y checks the entry and reads Chespin, the spinny nut Pokemon. Such a thick shell of wood covers its head and back that even a direct hit from a truck wouldn't phase it. Y says, X, how did you know what kind of Pokemon Chespin was? X shows off the Pokedex that he has. Well, Y says, oh, well, the comedy in this is actually pretty good. Mabel says, hey, Aliana, what just happened? Aliana says, don't get mad. You can do it, Diggersby. Give it your biggest punch, or else you know what'll happen. Oh. I think that's one of the few times we actually seen someone directly threaten their Pokemon. Diggersby shudders, puts up his ear dukes, and goes rushing in on Chespin. Chespin bounds up the walls as Diggersby springs up to, land a direct hit. But Chespin bounds off the wall just as Diggersby punches, so that Chespin knocks Diggersby right in the head with its head. Aliana says, that's right. I'll have to teach you a lesson. While Mabel still sulks, X tells Chespin to use Pin Missile as it lands right on the two Team Flare members, pinning them to a tree. Although in the process, Aliana accidentally smacks Mabel right in the face with her elbow. Mabel shouts, what is this? X tells Y, now's our chance. Let's make a run for it, Y. Y says, but the others. Trevor calls out, Y, we're fine. Oh, now they're free. It didn't even register to me. Y says, you mean you lured the Diggersby up there on purpose? But X doesn't respond. Shauna says, we're not fine. How are we supposed to get down? Trevor says, well, but Y seems to realize something, saying, jump, you'll be okay, I promise, hurry. Tennio grabs Shauna, saying, oh no. Shauna says, what makes you so sure that? But she's shocked as Tennio yanks her up, as he says, trust Y, and he jumps down. Oh! Onto Froaky's little bubble scarf, and so all the kids rush away. Y looks back though, saying, those red suits. I don't know why they're after X's ring, or who they are, but I'll never let them get what they want. And so the kids ended up camping regardless, with Shauna sulking, saying, I can't believe we're doing this. Y, how far are we going to run? Y says, how should I know? Tyrnio turns to X's little tent on Rhyhorn, saying, I'm glad little Kanga didn't get kidnapped, X. He then pets Chespin, saying, your commands to Chespin were really good. Don't you think this would be a good opportunity for you to get to know it better? So X says, forget it. If it becomes my Pokemon, it'll only get dragged into trouble. I don't think it should hang out with me. Shauna smiles, saying, I can't tell if he's truly caring or just cold-hearted. Well, Trevor's narration says, everybody's relieved after escaping that danger, but something's still bugging me. X's ring and something inside Kanga's pocket. They both shone at the same time. Trevor then heads over to Kangaskhan, saying, excuse me, Kanga? Little Kanga? He reaches into the pouch and pulls out a Mega Evolution Stone. Trevor questions, a stone? He then looks to X's blanket and thinks, the stone set in X's ring. The stone I found inside Kanga's pocket. The trainer has one stone, and the Pokemon has the other. I noticed some kind of shining energy radiating from those stones. And when the two are linked together, that's it. That must be the reason behind their transformation. This is that Mega Evolution thing those folks in the red suit were talking about. But what's the link? What connects the two stones? He thinks of X. Then he thinks of little Kanga. He thinks to himself, something that isn't around all the time. He thinks of Tyrnio's words saying, he needs more time. Then Trevor thinks, something that's not visible to the eye. Thinking of X's words, I guess you're still giving me the cold shoulder. Trevor thinks, Bond, this is an intriguing mystery. What are your trusts? Who do you limit? What? What are your trusts? Who do you limit? That's not how that works. That is not grammar. Trevor is scribbling something down in a notebook out of his pack. Y comes over saying, hey Trevor, you're looking awfully serious. Did you find out anything? Trevor says, nope, nothing. Y says, I did. Trina questions, what? Shauna questions, what is it, Y? Trevor says, what did you find out? Y says, that we better not stay at any inns from now on. Which, yeah, true enough. We cut over to Lumio City, where Professor Sycamore is watching the footage from Trevor. As he says in the footage, can't you see what's happening behind me? This isn't some movie. This is actually happening in Vanderville town right now. Professor Sycamore, Professor. And then it cuts out. We see Professor Sycamore with a Squirtle, Charmander, and Bulbasaur. He turns saying, this is a video sent to me via Holocaster from a boy who was in Vanderville town during the recent incident there. Oh, do you believe it? This video caught a glimpse of those Pokemon. the legendary Xerneas and Yveltal. It's critical that we know what really happened there. Luckily, that boy had a holocaster with him, so he recorded the two legendaries, but come to think of it, it was you who developed the holocaster, wasn't it? Which means, in some way, this video only exists thanks to you. You've developed so much technology that's helped the world. You're such a contribution to our society, Mr. Lysander. Dun dun dun. Oh, who is this Lysander? Is he friend? Is he foe? He has a Gyarados, though, which I'm actually kind of surprised at. Well, I won't tell you why I'm surprised, just in case. Yeah, he does have a Gyarados in the game. That is actually kind of wild to see. Oh, no location this time? Huh, that's interesting. But it's good to see that X was actually ready to just jump into the action. But he had to be coped. It won't be a good thing if he has to constantly have his Pokemon in danger to actually make a move. Alright, on to adventure number 5. Sylveon and Chance. Okay, Sylveon. Was Sylveon introduced in X and Y? Oh, specifically in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. But yeah, X and Y. Okay, cool. Good to know. Sycamore says, what do you think, Mr. Lysander? I was hoping that you might have noticed something I overlooked. May I take a look at that video again, Professor Sycamore? Lysander says. Sycamore says, of course, accessing the video. As he brings up the display of Xerneas and Yveltal, Sycamore says, it appears that the two Pokemon came on the scene at the same time, and that they are equally powerful. Look, Lysander says, according to legend, these two Pokemon are considered counterparts to one another, so that's to be expected. But Sycamore says, yes? There's something more? Lysander says, keep your eye on that bush over there. Yveltal's tail and the bush. As we see the scene, one swipe of Yveltal's tail decays the bush to nothing. Sycamore says the bush just withered away. Lysander then says, and when Xerneas runs past that same withered bush, and as Xerneas' feet hit the ground, the bush regrows. Sycamore says, what? The leaves grew back. Lysander says, that's right. Maybe Yveltal steals life, and Xerneas gives life. Sycamore says, Pokemon that steals life, and a Pokemon who gives life. These two Pokemon are exact opposites of each other. I'm so glad I had you take a look at this. Lysander then says, would it be possible for me to get a copy of this video? Sycamore says, of course. Cena, Dexio. Oh, Cena and Dexio. See, I remember them from Sun and Moon. Cena says, did you call us? While Dexio finishes saying, Professor Sycamore? Sycamore says, would you please copy this video for me, for Mr. Lysander? They say, of course. Sycamore then says, excuse me, I have other things to attend to. I must get going. Lysander says, thank you so much for giving me this moment of your valuable time. We must make our world a better place. And to accomplish that, people and their Pokemon must work hard. That's my philosophy. He says, clutching his fists. I dream of a more beautiful world. He shakes Sycamore's hand, saying, I'll drop by your office again if I need your assistance. Sycamore says, feel free to stop by any time you wish. You then cut to Route 2, an advanced time. On Advanced Trail. Why is making faces saying, medium smile. Wink with your left eye. Close your eyes and open your mouth. And last but not least, kissy face. And as she's making a kissy face towards the Eevee, Eevee seems to be done with her, jumps on her face and bounds off. Y follows saying, hey, come back here. We see the other sitting down eating, with Shauna saying, why is Y staring at the Pokemon? Trevor says, I don't know. Isn't that the Eevee Y captured yesterday? Tierno says, maybe she wants to get to know it fast. Y calls out, hey, X, this Pokemon isn't making faces at all. Is this really the right way to do it? X says, no, it's not. Y says, huh? You lied to me. X says, you didn't listen to me properly. Why? The Pokemon isn't meant to mimic you. You're meant to mimic the Pokemon's expression to yourself. It's the same as a human baby. You smile back at a baby who is smiling. By doing that, their actions are connected to their action. They instinctively learn that there is some kind of connection between you and them. If I was going to use a difficult term, it would be synchronization, or to put it simply, making faces. Y says, okay, this is all because you won't come out and teach me properly. Shauna says, this is going nowhere. Y then says, I can't just chase it around because it's fast. In that case, Frookie, help me out. She whispers to Frookie, use your through bubbles to block Eevee's path. Froakie does just that, but Eevee leaps over it. Eevee then lands in front of Froakie and smiles at it, causing Froakie to blush. I says, now, stop and attack and stop it. But Froakie just gently pats Eevee on the chest. Trevor sighs. Tierno just says, it got alerted. While Shauna says, men are so pitiful. Eevee then goes tromping up to Y. As Y says, what? And then it returns to his Pokeball and takes a nap. Y looks at it saying, what? You're just sleepy? This is exhausting, but I won't give up. I want to befriend it properly. She then slumps down, saying, maybe I'll feed it a Pokepuff after it wakes up. No, I'll pet it thoroughly before that. It liked it when I did that yesterday. It was especially happy when I petted it around the fur around its neck, but it didn't like me petting it on the head. Shauna says, I can't believe you haven't given up on that Eevee yet. I says, Eevee, don't be such a stranger. I've given you a nickname, you know. It's Vivi. Say hi. Trevor's in shock, saying, you named your Pokemon Vivi? Why? Shauna says, no wonder you two haven't gotten along. While Tierno just muses to himself, EVV. Just kidding. While Trevor thinks to himself, but I'm glad she realized after the attack at the end, she can't fight if she doesn't have enough Pokemon. Unbeknownst to our heroes, Team Flare is watching them down near the water from a nearby cliffside. The grunts say to each other, found him? Right. The one with the Mega Ring and his friends. How should we approach them and steal the ring? We'll show them how much better we are than the team they fought last time. We then see a basket full of Pokepuffs. Trevor saying, these are Pokepuffs. Tierno licks his lips saying, they actually look good to eat. Shauna says, I never knew there were so many of them. As Eevee is fed a Pokepuff, Tierno says, it likes it. Can I give it one? Y says, sure. Oh, choose the gorgeous looking Pokepuffs with lots of topping on it. That way we can become even better friends. He says, nuzzling up to Eevee. Trevor says, it does seem friendlier than before. Shauna says, who knows? It could just be friendly while it eats, right? And then Eevee suddenly scampers off. Shauna saying, see? Y and the others chase it, saying, Vivi, come back! Eevee looks around and then spots a place called Fun Minigame Corner. Lots of people and Pokemon inside. You see a place called the Tilt Puzzle, Eat It, Berry Picker. As Y and the others move in, Trevor says, there it is. Y calls out, Vivi. Well, Shauna says, where are we? Trevor explains, saying, it's apparently an event where the trainer teams up with a Pokemon to play games. Tierno says, this might be perfect for Y and Vivi to participate in. Shauna questions, isn't it dangerous for us to be playing around here? Tierno says, I think it's more dangerous for Vivi to prance around as it wants to. And Vivi seems all fired up too. I says, right, okay, he'd like to participate. Oh my god, it's the game announcer dude again. As far as I can tell, he doesn't have a name. He says, welcome. Is this your first time here? If this is your first time, I recommend this simple game. Eat it. A ball of yarn will come falling down. You must heed, so you must headbutt the yarn and bounce it back. Alright, head it? Is it heed it or head it? The trainer's only job is to give the Pokemon orders at the right time. You see a Tyrogue listening to its trainer, but it gets pissed off when it isn't timed correctly. The game announcer says, but this may be the game that will ask you for the most teamwork out of all the games here. I says, no problem. I'm probably good at games like this. Shauna questions, are you so sure? The announcer says, great. Please participate in the game with 3 Pokemon. You will start out with 1 Pokemon, but the number of Pokemon will increase over time. And you will need to give orders to 3 Pokemon in the end. The time limit is 60 seconds. Y says, Vivi, Farfetch, and Froakie, I need your help. The announcer says, well then, game start. Y says, Vivi, jump on the count of 3. Here it comes, 1, 2, 3. But it's mistimed. Y says, no problem, no problem. 1, 2, 3. And Eevee manages to do it. Y says, yeah, once again. I was so close. Again. Good, good. The announcer says, and the result is? Miss Y got total heading points is 3. Rank, header, amateur. Shauna says, good at this, my foot. Y grows angry and yells at the announcer saying, I'll try the tile puzzle next. I might be better at that. I'm going to enter that game. Much to the dismay of the others, Trevor says, X, you should come out and cheer for Y too. In fact, give her some advice. But X says, I'm staying in here. He then pushes out a book to Trevor saying, by the way, Trevor, I'd like to ask you for your opinion. Take a look at this article. Trevor says, baby doll eyes. The user stares at the target with its baby doll eyes, which lowers its attack stat. This move always goes first. It's a status move. I never knew about it. But what about it? X says, remember the time when Y's VV stared at Froakie? Trevor thinks back saying, oh, and that was baby doll eyes. X says, on top of that, take a look at this. Trevor reads, move type fairy. X says, it has been added onto the 17 previous Pokemon types that have existed until now. It is the 18th Pokemon type. Trevor says, then that's really impressive. The Eevee she happened to get knew a new type move from the right from the start. X says, right. Trevor says, we should tell Y about it. Why? Y says, yeah, that's right. And the next, she's in her flight suit. In the next game, Berry Picker, the trainer goes and picks the berry their Pokemon wants to eat. Their trainers are climbing the tree and using long branches. Y says, but I've got this. So this time, the announcer says, start. Y says, okay, Vivi. Eevee presses the button of the fruit they want. Isn't that like an orange berry? And Y flies up, grabs it, brings it back down to Eevee, saying, here. Eevee does the same again, and Y grabs it. Trevor says, she's fast. And why is, I guess it's Shauna saying, and why he's starting to see which berry Eevee wants, what Vivi wants before it chooses it. X looks out of his blankets with a big smile, but then suddenly his eyes get narrow and serious, just as Y's picking a berry. Oh, is it a Lickitung? Oh no. What is this Pokemon's for? Sliggoo. A Sliggoo grabs Y by her helmet, lifting her up into the air, as we see the members of Team Flare in the tree saying, got you, Giovanni Gabane. Trevor says, the red suits. The grunts say, don't move. Female says, X, hand over your Mega Ring. This is more like Team Rocket from the original Pokemon anime, I'm realizing. Instead of Pikachu, they want the Mega Ring. They say, if you don't hurry, your friend's head is going to melt into sludge with Sliggoo's slime. Eevee bounds up the tree, going for Sliggoo. But, it's blasted by acid? Y cries out to her Eevee as the grunts say, I wonder which of you will melt first. Trevor goes over to X, but X is smiling, saying, did you see that? Eevee desperately tried to help Y. They've become good friends. Trevor says, what are you talking about? You have to help Y. X says, that's unnecessary. Shauna says, what? But he tells them, look. And out from the goo that was sprayed onto it, a ribbon comes out. And much to the shock of the members of Team Flare, Eevee has evolved into Silvally. That's the name of the Pokemon, right? Sylveon. Not Silvally, Sylveon. Trevor says it evolved. Trevor thinks to himself, it's said that Eevee has the possibility of evolving into many different Pokemon like Vaporeon, Jolteon, Flareon, Espeon, Umbreon, Leafeon, Glaceon. Have we seen a Leafeon and Glaceon yet? That Pokemon is none of those that X brings out his Pokédex, reading Sylveon, the intertwining Pokemon. He wraps his ribbon feelers around the arm of his beloved trainer and walks with him or her. X says fairy type, Sylveon. I don't know why I keep saying the wrong name. It whips away the Team Flare grunts, goes up to Sliggoo, thinks back to Y saying, and last but not least, the kissy face that Y was doing before, and it kisses Sliggoo, charming it and pretty much knocking it out. Oh man, and Y's head was sure about to melt because you see the helmet with the melted part almost down to her hair. Jeez, he was about to get an impromptu haircut. As Sylveon smiles at Y, she goes over and hugs it saying, Vivi! And sure enough, as they walk off, Sylveon's ribbon is wrapped around Y's hand. As Trevor narrates, the enemies who are chasing after us and their schemes are still a mystery. But we continued to gradually befriend new Pokemon as we hurried on our journey to find the truth. And I like this little image because you see X now actually peeking out a little bit more from his blanket with that smile on his face. I really do love that smile of his. I love how he has that smile when he sees, his friends enjoying their time with Pokemon, but then he'll go dead serious when he needs to. It is the wildest thing ever. You gotta love those protagonists who just switch it up on a dime. It's like with Ruby or with even Blake, where they go from happy mode to just intense mode all of a sudden. Good stuff. See, seeing that I'm more and more endeared to X as time goes on. And so, after all this time, the last chapter, adventure number 6, Kangaskhan Khan, Kangas Can't. We pick up in Santa Luna City, where Shauna and Trevor are hanging out on a street corner. Shauna says, what a lousy night. Trevor, looking at, I guess, a map, says, oh no, it's Shauna still talking, saying, I never want to sleep in the forest again. Every wild Pokemon around trampled all over me. I couldn't sleep a wink. As we see the Pansage, Panpour, and Pansear just running past her face. Oh, and then a little bug Pokemon walking over her too. Trevor says, the forest we slept in last night was called Santa Luna Forest. I didn't notice. I was too busy running. Oh no, it's Shauna saying, I didn't notice. I was too busy running away. But we finally managed to reach Santa Luna City. Trevor says, so we're a lot closer to Lumia City now. And Shauna says, you're way too optimistic. By the way, where's Wai and Tyranny? And Tyranny. Trevor says they went shopping. Enter Tyranno with 2 bags saying, sorry to keep you waiting. He goes over to X saying, here, I got all the stuff you asked for. Drinks, snacks, magazines. Shauna says, it's no different from the junk food we were eating before we left home. And as Trevor watches X, he says, X saved most of the prize money he won at the junior trainer tournament. So we have a lot of spare cash. That's one way of getting around that. Enter Y saying, could you help me with these? As she comes up with a horde of packages. I say, why? Y puts down a few of her bags saying, we lucked out. The city had a cheap boutique with all kinds of clothes. Trevor questions, clothes? Y says, to disguise ourselves. We were attacked by the old lady in the inn in an Cord town, and we ended up in a battle on Route 2 against Lagoo. We finally reached Santa Luna City, but we don't dare stay at an inn again, and I can hardly go shopping because I'm so worried that the red suits are sulking around and might spot me. Don't you feel the same? The others nod. I know it's too late to change things now, but I think it was a big mistake to have written our names in the inn's guest book. The red suits managed to find where X was through the stone in his bracelet, but they've seen X and my faces during the battle, and I even told them about my mother. Signing the guest book was the worst, though, because now the red suits have info about all 5 of us. Shauna questions, so you want to change clothes periodically to hide our identities? Y says, that's right. Trevor says, that's actually an interesting way of kind of addressing the fact that in the game you can now change clothes. Y says, the only people we can truly trust on this journey are each other. He reaches into her bag saying, so I came up with these guidelines. You all need to swear to follow them. They read it, the 5 don'ts. Tyranno says, don't go anywhere with grown-ups you don't know. Don't enter buildings you don't know. Trevor says, don't tell anyone your name. Don't use your phone or holocaster. Don't. Shauna says, what is this? You're treating us like kindergartners. But Y has a dead serious look on her face saying, well, yes, but if even one of us does or any of these don'ts, it'll endanger all of us. She then starts handing over clothes saying, so get change. He puts a hat on Trevor, hands Tyranno a shirt, and starts to take off Shauna's shirt. And she says, hey. Tyranno says, I don't think this is gonna fit me. Y lifts up X's blanket. And come on, X, this has everything to do with you. Get changed. X closes the sheet, rustles around a bit, and then comes out in his usual garb. Y says, you actually listen to me. What's going on, Kanga and little Kanga? You know why? Oh. We see that Chespin has been hiding out in Kangaskhan's pouch, much to Y's shock. He says, in the pocket together, huh? Looks like you become friends. X doesn't say anything as he silently brings Chespin out of the pouch and sets it down. He says, Kanga, Trevor, go with me for a minute. Trevor says, okay. They head off. Shauna questions, what's gotten into him? As Tina says, I bet he wants Trevor's help to find out the secret behind you-know-what. Y says, Mega Evolution, you mean? We cut to Route 22, Detorner Way. As we see them in the tall grass, we see a Litleo. Okay. Never actually knew the, early form of it. Jumping out of the grass. Trevor says, a Litleo jumped out. X, give it a try. I don't know why I never just keep reading. They usually say the name. X tries to activate the Mega Stone, but nothing happens. Trevor says, no good. The Litlia moves around. Kangaskhan just bonks it on the head, and it runs back into the brush. Trevor says, Kanga and Little Kanga are strong enough to easily ward off a wild Pokemon like that. That's not what we wanted to see. That transformation didn't happen again. Let's go over what we know so far. First, our enemies have been calling that transformation Mega Evolution, and they called X's ring a Mega Ring. Second, they tried to take X's Mega Ring during their first attack, and they tried to kidnap Lil Kanga, knowing it was a Pokemon who could Mega Evolve. Based on all that, it looks like the enemy wants to get a hold of the power of Mega Evolution. There's no doubt about it. And there's also something only I might know about. Oh, is he thinking about this to himself? Which is that third, the Pokemon holding a special stone seems to be connected to the Mega Evolution. X then tapes up the stone. Trevor says, you put duct tape over it again. Why? The red suit said you couldn't hide the energy waves radiating from the stone like that. X nods, and he tells him, they might already have figured out our whereabouts as we speak. No hard feelings, why, but they'll probably find us even if we wear disguises, which, yeah, that's true. Y grows angry while Chino tells her, now. Shauna saying, I thought so. X tells them, hiding the stone with the duct tape, but just a sign of weakness. I want to find out more about this Mega Evolution thing now. How do I trigger the transformation? What do I need to do? But if I learn how to Mega Evolve Little Kanga, it'll be placed in the spotlight again. People will make a spectacle out of Little Kanga. That's not all. There'll be grown-ups like those red suits who will try to use Little Kanga for their own evil device. It makes me really uncomfortable to see this stone shining. I'm covering it because I don't want to see it. Shauna says, why don't you just throw the ring away? There's no need for you to keep it if you don't like it. X says, right. This ring is the reason we're all getting attacked. The easiest thing to do would be to get rid of it. But I can't. I can't throw away this ring. Trevor says, X, maybe it's time you told us. How did you get that ring anyway? Only for Viola to emerge from behind a tree saying, I'd like to hear that story too. She's with her... Oh, no, Viola. Yeah, Viola. And she's with her Vivillon. Y says, you're the photographer from back in Vanderville's town. Viola says, I'm glad to see you're all safe. But I never imagined I'd run into you here. Notice that X isn't around anymore. Trevor says, your name is Viola, right? What are you doing here? Viola explains, I live in Santa Luna City and I'm the city's gym leader too. Yeah, see, that's one thing I'm questioning. How did the gym leaders connect to this whole story? Because they're not really on a quest to take on the gym leaders. But Y says, gym leader? Viola says, I'm sorry for eavesdropping, but I overheard everything. I can see you're trying to get to the bottom of this yourselves. That being the case, I can help you. Come to my gym with me. Trevor questions why. Viola says, I'm a photographer. You might be able to discover something by looking at the photos I took that day. Y, Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor are all quiet. Viola says, your name is Y, right? You told me you don't like journalists and the media. You said you don't trust grown-ups like me. I won't deny that some of us don't deserve your trust. But personally, I think it's the responsibility of the press to provide information to people in need of it. Y then says, all right, we'll go with you. Much to the shock of the others. Shauna saying, hey, this doesn't make any sense. Y says, why? Shauna says, you're the one who said don't go anywhere with grown-ups you don't know, Y. Y says, but she isn't someone I don't know. Shauna says, huh? Trevor says, calm down, Shauna. We met her before in Vanderville town. She was there when things went crazy. She took pictures. If she can provide us with more information, there's no reason to reject this opportunity. Tina says, right. I'll stay on my guard to be on the safe side. As he brings out his core fish, Shauna says, you too, Tierney? She looks to X saying, you won't go, will you, Xy? But X proceeds past, patting her on the shoulder. Shauna says, I can't believe you guys. And she runs off, Tierno calling out to her. But Y just looks away saying, she'll be back soon. Right now, we need all the information we can get about that incident. Let's go with Viola. Which, I gotta say, I'm actually kind of surprised that even X agreed. But he's a lot more pragmatic than I thought he'd be. He realizes we have no information and he got no choice. Yeah, can't argue with that. But as Shauna is sniffling walking through the street, she spies a fufu, or furfu. Furfru? There we go, furfru. She says, is that and runs over, grabbing the Furfrou, saying, I found you. But as she looks to the Pokemon's owner, she says, oh, she bows, saying, I'm sorry, I've been separated from my Furfrou, and I was trying to find it. The person says, don't worry about it. Anyone who's a friend of Furfrou is a friend of mine. Shauna says, oh, those combs and scissors. The person says, you guessed it, I'm a groomer at Lumio City. Shauna says, really? It's my dream to become a Furfrou groomer. The groomer says, what a coincidence. Let me show you some grooming techniques then. Okay, yeah, Furfrou can apparently be cut into different forms, or trims they call it. The person shows out the debutante trim, the pharaoh trim, the metron trim, and the dandy trim. Shauna says, this is so exciting. The groomer says, Shauna, was it? How would you like to give it a try? Shauna says, can I really? The groomer says, of course, but these scissors are for professionals. So I'll lend you something for beginners. Here you are. That's weird. Isn't that an Aegis Slash? I'm pretty sure that's a Pokemon. Shauna says, I've been studying to become a groomer, but I've never seen anything like this before. The groomer says, the grooming tools in Lumios are cutting edge, literally. This feels like a setup. Shauna, you defied the rules. The person says, give them a try. You won't be disappointed. That's it. Imagine that the Furfrou will look like after the grooming is done. And alongside the lines of the body, that's right, not bad. As Shauna starts to get in a bit of a daze, something wraps around her arm as the person is revealed to be Celosia of Team Flare, and she is holding an Aegis Slash. Or no, she's holding a Honedge, but there is an Aegis Slash behind her, and she's cutting a tree? As Celosia says, you're getting the hang of it. Keep going. Man, they're around every corner, my god. Current location, Route 2, Advanced Trail. You'll find many Pokemon hiding among the tall grass that grows in Tessalon Trail. Santuluna Forest, the gentle light filtering through this sun-dappled forest makes a popular spot for nature walkers. Route 3, Overt Way. The little rises and hollows of this lush forest are a favorite place of many kinds of Pokemon to play. In Santuluna City, many beginning trainers gather in this friendly city to start a Pokemon journey. Okay, so we're only at the start. My god. See, this is an interesting journey, because it's doing what I thought maybe we were gonna do in the Black and White story arc, where we're actually traveling with the friends. But instead of breaking off, everyone's traveling together, which is very kind of indicative of Diamond and Pearl, and to a certain degree. You know, a group of friends traveling together. It makes me think of the Pokemon anime, especially being pursued by the evil team. But the reason for pursuit feels a little bit more solid here. It's like they're after the Mega Stones. They want the secrets of Mega Evolution and all that. But it's a question. Why does X have that stone? Was he given it by that unknown figure at the tournament? And what was it that happened to the little Kangaskhan that made him withdraw from society? That's an interesting mystery there. I probably shouldn't have done so many chapters. My voice is regretting it a little bit, but this got me kind of going, because to pick up with the clash of the two box legendaries immediately just grabbed my attention and wouldn't let go. It's like, okay, I want to know what's going on here. I want to find out, what is this all about? Like, why were they battling? I guess they were drawn by Team Flare, but did they just do that in a populated area just because? What drew them to that area? And why did they stop fighting? Was it because of the Mega Evolution? How did they tie into the Mega Evolution? I don't know enough about these Pokemon to really understand all that. There's a lot there. And I love the different personality. Y is a lot more impulsive. X is very reserved. Trevor is analytical. Tierno has a lot of heart. Shauna has a lot of sass. But I like the dynamic. Like, I just like seeing these guys interact with each other. And I don't know, it's just the low energy of X very much contrasts with the high energy of Y. But he's not completely uncaring. I thought maybe that would be an issue, but no. There's obviously a lot of caring in his character. And I can't wait to see him grow more out of that reserved state that he's in. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you in the next one. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.